everybody has a program to train their salespeople and enablement and that. I mean, everybody understands that it's better if your salespeople are good and you will train them. But we're exploring something at Chili Pepper that's very interesting. We're exploring the idea of doing an uneven distribution. So our Chili Pepper operation distribute the leads. So you get a prospect and we run robin and we make sure it's fair. And then if people on vacation, they don't get them. And when they come back, they get just a regular share. One extreme solution said, I have my top players. First you fill their calendar. And once they're fully booked, then you give it to the others.
Hi, friends. Welcome to the Sales Enablement Podcast. I'm your host, Andy Paul. That was Nicolas Vandenberghe. He's the co-founder and CEO of Chili Pepper. And in our conversation today, we're talking about the importance of speed to lead. Nicolas and I dive into the reasons why companies that are increasingly relying on inbound marketing to generate their sales pipeline are struggling to convert inbound leads because they aren't responding in a timely enough manner. So we dig into the whole issue of lead response time. And why does response time matter? I mean, for me, among other reasons, it's important because it's a first impression of you and your company that you make on a prospective buyer. It's part of how the buyers experience you. So Nicolas and I dig into the findings from a recent study conducted by Chili Pepper on lead response and what they found about the correlation of lead response time to lead conversion. And FYI, they found that the average lead response time is 42 hours. Does being responsive matter? Absolutely, yes, it does. So we get into this and much, much more. But before we get to Nicolas, I want to remind you to subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen to it. And if you subscribe, we'd certainly appreciate it if you could also leave us a review and give us your feedback about how we're doing. So thank you. All right, let's jump into it. Nicolas, welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Happy to be back.
Yeah, it surprised me. I looked, it's been 6 years.
Wow.
Just like what's changed since then.
Quite a different world.
Yeah, in many regards. So, I mean, 6 years ago, Chili Pepper, you probably had how many employees?
Well, I think it was just been 5 of us 6 years ago, 5 or 7. Yeah. And now we are 220.
Wow. Okay.
220. And what makes me really proud is that we are, we'd seen the movie before the movie was released. So we were remote from the beginning. Mm-hmm. And we have 220 employees in 182 cities and 40 countries.
Wow.
We have people in countries you've never heard of, like, I shouldn't, this is something condescending, but I think like Macedonia and Kosovo and now Chile. I mean, Chile is something you've heard of, but in all sorts of beautiful places.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to ask, do you have people in the Ukraine? Because you've been posting quite a bit about that recently.
Yes, we have been posting because we have several employees in Ukraine and several employees in Russia. And I don't know if you know, but when we did our B round, which we raised 33 million, we thought, okay, now is the time to do good. So we put 1 million into a foundation against violence, and that was last year. And our goal was to help eliminate violence. So I guess it was pre-science because we well, actually, maybe not, because we never thought that this kind of war could still happen.
No.
But we funded effort to help people educate around peace and nonviolence. And 4 weeks before the invasion, we got our Russian employees together with Ukrainian employees, like cheering and saying we are brothers and sisters, and it makes no sense for us to kill one another.
Right.
And shortly after, of course, that thing happened. So it's a trauma. But now what we're doing is that most of our Ukrainian employees, male employees, wants to stay in Ukraine and fight. So they do, and we help them. And for our Russian employees, we have actually asked them to leave the country because we do not want to send any dollar to the country, right? So most of them are already out. A couple of them are still on transit, but we've stopped all payments to Russia.
Yeah. Yeah, as you said, it's hard to believe this could happen in modern Europe, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so
All right, let's talk about business. And
Yeah, let's talk to business.
talk about business. So we're going to talk about this idea of speed to lead, which we were just chatting about prior to starting to record. That this has been a topic of conversation for a long time. I mean, some of the data, even so, I was going through your reports and so on. Is some of the data is 15, almost 20 years old at this point. Is it more urgent speed to lead than it was 15, 20 years ago?
Very, very much so. And there are two main reasons for that. The first one is what has been called the dark funnel, where people actually educate themselves outside of your knowledge. So that's why it's called dark. It's dark funnel from the vendor standpoint. From the prospect standpoint, it's not all dark. They're quite happy talking to their friends in their network and their Slack channels and so on. But from the vendor standpoint, they don't know that these people are finding out about you. And the important thing is that you don't control your message, right? Because they're asking in the group on Slack, they're asking their friend, and you have no control, well, at least no direct control of what these people say. But by the time they come to your website, they already know you. They already made up their, at least have some opinion about what your solution is worth. And as a result, they're much more further along the life cycle, and you absolutely want to engage with them as fast as you can. So that's what we call the straight to meeting imperative, which is do not wait, just go straight to meeting, book a meeting, whichever way you can book a meeting with them, engage and talk to them. The second reason is that the alternative to that used to be that you would capture an email. So you say, the whole world of marketing is actually structured around email, capturing an email. I'll give more details about that. And the thing about that, if you capture an email and say, that's it, now I have Andy's email, I'm going to nurture him, email him, or have an SDR, email him or something. Well, the thing is that the emails, they go to spam, right? So in the past, email was a decent channel. Now you're inundated. Outlook and Gmail filter them and move them to spam, and you never get that email. So when in the past you say, it's okay if I send an email an hour later, now an hour later means that you go into the spam folder. Instead of actually talking to the prospect was right on your site, you're now in the spam folder. So this is the second reason why it's speed to lead. And as we say at Chili Pepper, it's not even speed to lead. It's no longer a debate. It has to be instant. So you have to be straight to meeting and book the meeting as fast as you can and as easily as you can for the prospect. Obviously, that's what our solution is designed to do. But we've had we see that companies are starting to understand it because we had been doubling year over year. So since we old buddies, that we started small, but now we're more like tripling in our revenues and customer accounts because people are understanding that they cannot afford to do that. It's a funny thing when we came up with our solution, we were talking to this species called inbound SDR. And I say, what is your job as an inbound SDR? I say, well, you see on our website we have a form, request a demo. People submit that form. They get a page that says, thank you, somebody's going to call you. And it's my job. I call them. I say, that's great. And how is that going for you? And people would tell me, it's going great. I'm converting at 40%. And I said, you mean to tell me that 100 people have asked for a demo and 60 of them didn't get that demo? And the reason why they thought it was good is because the outbound SDR was converting at 1%, but they were calling people who never asked for a demo, right? So you'd expect that. But they say, look, I remember
perspective is king, right?
Yeah, that's right. I remember one of these outbound SDRs saying, Mary is amazing. She books so many meetings. I think the people ask for the meeting.
How hard is it?
She called it. Exactly. But the net of it is that it was like a well-accepted practice that you have an inbound SDR that they call and book the meeting and that for some reason it seemed that losing more than half your pipeline was just the nature of the game. So we changed that when we deploy our form concierge solution about a form submission. We qualify, we route, we book in real time, and as a result, we double in non-conversion rate. And so now that companies realize that they can't afford to spend these dollars in marketing and having this leakage in the middle of that process.
Well, we'll get into that in a second because you guys have done a study about some of that, and there's still significant leakage in that that process.
That's right.
But for many companies, but yeah, I think that the thing you talked about the dark funnel, but I wrote about this years ago in my first book is that by definition, when in today's environment, when a buyer reaches out to actually speak to a seller, given the self-education that's gone on beforehand, you have to assume that there's a degree of urgency to it on the part of the buyer. They've invested time already in their process, and they're motoring towards a conclusion. So
absolutely.
They want you.
Absolutely.
they want you.
You're absolutely right, and actually, the urgency varies business by business. Typically, if it's a large enterprise deal, people can wait a day or 2 or 3. So that's very fine. If you're in the mid-market and you have a deal that are smaller, then losing a day makes a difference. So you want to book the meeting within the next 24 to 48 hours. And then we have companies like Square as a customer of ours on the B2C, where they found that if they wait until the day after, they lose a very large portion of their opportunities because it's too late. And the reason for it, if you think of it, Square provides payment systems. When a small business calls and say, I need a payment, most likely is because their current payment system broke. Or they're about to launch and they want to launch. So they don't want to wait. They can't correct payments, right? So they have to do it immediately. And so the solution for them is that it's our solution where you auto dial. So when somebody submits a form, we don't book a meeting. We just dial them and get them immediately on that. So the instant is actually, the meeting is instant.
Right.
And you're exactly right. That's the ultimate urgency, as you were mentioning. There's always urgency, but sometimes it's real urgent.
But I think the imperative exists, and I firmly believe this, for doesn't matter the size of the deal or complexity of the deal or whatever, because what's happening is you're creating a first impression, right, in the mind of the buyer of what it's like to deal with your company. It's the first part of the buying experience. And we know from studies from Gartner and others that the buying experience is actually, these days, given the slim differentiation between products, the buying experience with the seller is oftentimes the point of difference between vendors. So, I think there's a huge difference regardless of the deal. If you can be that first one to respond, you're creating a much more positive impression in the mind of the buyer than those that wait a day or more.
Yeah, there's tons of data proving that point, and our research that you're referring to, recent Chile insights about that process is puzzling because you still have companies that never call back or request a meeting and people never call back. It's like amazing. You think with all the tools we have right now, that would never happen, but it still happens.
Well, and so why do you think that is? I mean, I have my thoughts, but I'm just curious. What based on your experience, why are companies not responding to these leads?
So I start. The answer is that it's at the junction between marketing and sales. So marketing is a process to bring these people to ask for a request, and then sales starts. So that and so there's kind of a blame game where they've followed up with 5 of them. They're all not qualified, and marketing says bullshit, and it's not worth it. And so that's the main problem, is that there's 2 different processes with 2 different teams, and none of them take ownership of that middle. That's actually what has made our business challenging, is because we had to sell to both departments, right? So we had to get them to agree, and it's like getting a long
cats and dogs, right?
The cats and dogs to agree on what game they're going to play. Exactly. So, but then eventually, it has happened to me several times that I talked to the CEO and he said, "Oh my God, you're right, makes so much sense. I'm going to hook you up with my head of sales to make it happen immediately." And the head of sales refused because they have the SDR team and that's how they do things, and it's like not their problem. Amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I think. Yes, I mean, sure. There's going to be leads that you come across that aren't worth following up, or once you follow it up, they aren't qualified for what you're doing. But for most salespeople, I mean, a steady source of inbound leads is like an ATM machine that's broken, that's just spinning out cash.
You're exactly right. Yeah, you're exactly right. The cash hemorrhaging, yeah.
Right.
And this idea of qualification, I think people, there must be some aspect of human psychology where we overreact because we're so disappointed. So you're an account executive, you get a lead, you say, great, I have a meeting this afternoon at 2:00 with the prospect. The prospect shows up, he's completely not qualified. And that disappointment is a strong emotion. And as a result, they're going to complain and say, stop sending me this unqualified lead. And so that squeaky wheel is getting way too much oil, that non-qualified. We hear all the time say, but you're going to send us non-qualified lead. First of all, we have real-time qualification. So we do qualify the leads at Chili Pepper. But even if you were missing, what is better to have occasionally, let's say 5% of your 100 being not qualified and still working with them, or missing 60%, which is the current state of the industry,
right.
of these qualified people who ask for a demo, right? So economically, the trade-off is clear. You should book all these meetings, but emotionally, people are biased toward the wrong decision.
Well, so it sort of raises a thought, which is, in these situations where you see, and again, we'll get to the data, but I mean, it was, let's see, in general, about 28% of leads, nearly 30% of leads are never followed up. Across various company sizes and types and so on, is maybe the issue is these companies just have too much pipeline.
I've never heard anybody say that.
but think about it for a second. So what is what's the average win rate on a qualified opportunity in most SaaS companies? I mean, it's
15 to 30%.
Yeah, between 20 and 30%.
Yeah.
So I would make the argument that if you can only win such a small fraction of your deals, you've got too many prospects.
That's an interesting argument.
I mean, first of all, you'd say you could make the argument that if you can only win 20 to 30% of your most qualified opportunities, you don't have product market fit. Or you have product market fit and you can't execute from a sales perspective. But if you're winning such a small percentage of your deals, I would argue, you have too many prospects. Focus more and learn how to win the ones you have, and then start adding more to the pipeline. So
that would be a little bit like you have too many prospects, like the advertising joke, right? That half the budget is wasted, but you don't know which half.
Right, exactly.
So if you start rejecting prospect, then you can say, well, did I reject the good ones, right? So you don't know until you've engaged with them. So it's difficult
or invest less up front. Generate fewer leads.
Fewer. Yeah, but if there was a secret recipe by investing less, generating more qualified lead, and as a result of it, because fundamentally you're hinting at two levers to increase your conversion rates. One obviously is you're hinting at it is training the salespeople to do a better job, and the other piece is getting people who are more likely to convert, which we typically call qualified, and they're very qualified, so they're more likely. And I think everybody in marketing is trying to bring more qualified leads. I mean, you keep looking at the profile that works, the persona that works, the context that works, and everybody's trying to do that. So I think if there was a secret weapon to just only bring hyper qualified prospects to your sales team, everybody would do it, right?
Yeah.
And as for the training of the sales team, training the sales team is go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I think that part of the issue is that among the leads that you generate, some are more qualified than others, and you can determine that, right? Is that you can define a type, and when you've defined the type by winning a higher fraction of them, then you can teach marketing what they should be doing.
Yes, but Andy, there's been hundreds of millions of dollars invested in this idea.
Yeah,
it's no seriously. It started the beginning of last decade. Companies showed up and said, with artificial intelligence, we're going to do lead scoring, and the score will be so well done with artificial intelligence that we're going to change the world. And what has really changed is that VC lost money in a new category called lead scoring, right? And
which marketing automation systems still do.
They do, but no, they do it with
based on activity and engagement.
Yeah, but much less ambition.
Right.
It's a feature that's kind of nice to have. And like at the time when companies like Everstring or what's the other one, I don't remember the name, showed up, they say, look, we take your data in Salesforce, we analyze it all, and then we tell you which ones to go after, and that's going to be the miracle. You're going to convert like there's no tomorrow. It just didn't happen. It didn't happen because the main reason is that what is carrying a lot of signals is obvious to the human beings, so you've already done it. In other words, if you know that it's mid-market tech companies that are closing well, you go after mid-market tech companies, and the lower, less visible signal is often not very strong. So you think that it matters that they've done already 3 white papers, but you found that the guy showed up and did one-click sale, right? They bought immediately. Right. So you can, if people have done nothing, you can just decline them because they may be your next person who buys today. Yeah. So it's a harder problem than.
Yeah, well, I know.
Than it seems.
It's one I think we don't give enough attention to, though. That's my belief. Certainly as it results in how sales executes.
I think that's a fair statement. Yeah. That we don't give it enough attention. We at Chili Pepper had these 3 buckets, A, B, C, of potential targets for our sales development teams. Mm-hmm. So we said, look, the A are more likely to close, so go after the A, and if you don't get enough A, get the Bs, and the Cs just if you have time left. And then we hired, to my shame, I must say, we hired a director of analytics. So that's not my shame because I'm very happy he's on board. And what is my shame is that he started running the numbers and found that our B bucket was actually converting better than our A bucket. So we got it wrong. But of course, it's a bit more subtle. At some stage, the A bucket was converting better because that's what we found. And then down the road, we had to adjust. So I think you're right. The companies don't pay enough attention to that. They should monitor at any time if there's more. Which signals are most important and how to prioritize.
Well, I mean, that's why I throw up the comment that maybe there's too much pipeline. Is that if you can be so casual about win rates, then you're at some point you're really just playing the odds rather than actually executing a process to win a certain fraction of your deals. Anyway, I don't want to get sidetracked on that, but
the other interesting aspect of what you brought up is the performance of the sales team. Mm-hmm. So, can you improve the performance of the sales team?
Sure.
So, of course, everybody has a program to train their salespeople and enablement and that. I mean, everybody understands that it's better if your salespeople are good and you will train them. But we're exploring something at Chili Pepper that's very interesting. We're exploring the idea of doing an uneven distribution. So, our Chili Pepper solution distribute the leads.
Right.
So, you get a prospect and we run robin and we make sure it's fair and then if people on vacation, they don't get them, and when they come back, they get just a regular share. But then you think, well, what if I've had a few companies say, I don't want to do that. I want to feel. So one extreme solution said, I want to have my top players. First, you fill their calendar, and once they're fully booked, then you give it to the others. Which is a bit extreme because then the others have nothing to eat on some bad days.
Well, it's more than that. I mean, because this happens and has happened, as long as there have been leads, right? Is that managers, before we had a system to do it, like Chili Piper would put a rule into it and say, this is how to distribute the leads. Managers would do that. And they would always favor the top performers. And then you get this vicious cycle going where your lesser people don't get the opportunities. They don't get the experience to develop the confidence they need to become better. And so we basically condemn those people to being subpar.
Yeah, that's right. So that's the risk that you are reinforcing a weakness.
It's a guaranteed
outcome. We're exploring is a bit more subtle. Is the idea that it's not that all the good ones go to the top performers. Is that you bias the distribution by giving more, and not the good ones. You give more leads to the top performers, but enough for the others to train, and then you monitor their performance. As the performance improves, then you move them to the upper basket. So that's I think it's something worth exploring. That the reality that this would result in more revenues, right? So it's
well, but that gets back to the topic we were talking about, which is the easiest way for companies in many cases to increase revenues is to start winning a higher fraction of their qualified opportunities. If you took your win rate from 20 to 30 to 30 to 40, I'd make the argument that that's less expensive and more profitable than investing more in generating top of funnel activity.
Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah.
But no one thinks about it.
So
anyway,
not hard enough. Yeah.
It's a topic I love to talk about, but I didn't get sidetracked from what we were talking about, which was, speed to lead, which I think is hugely important. And I love the study you did because it looks like I want to get back to that because you guys basically did like a secret shopper approach, right?
We did. That's right. We wanted to do a bit of a state of the industry, on the speed to lead. Mostly, what kind of companies respond to their meeting request, and
right.
And it was shocking because you think that there's been so much written about it, like right. You say, it seems so absurd that you don't follow with the lead that you think that nobody would do that anymore. But that's not what we found. As you can see from the result, we found several times where nobody followed up, and the distribution was certainly not. When you think you should follow up in the first 5 minutes, that's certainly not what we found. That's certainly not where the industry stands. So there's a lot of progress to be made by the industry.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and especially it seemed to be worse with larger companies in your studies, or like those with like 10,000 or more employees, is they basically, they just basically didn't give a damn about the leads. It's pretty much what it looks like. It's just like, never mind. Because almost some of the bigger companies, it's like at least 30% of their leads were just never being touched at all, just being flushed down the drain. All that money, all that marketing money.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? It's crazy.
Yeah,
You when we said I wonder why that is, you said I have my idea, but I want to hear yours. So my turn. What is your thought on that? Why do companies do that?
Well, I think it's along the lines of what you said. I think that we still have these persistent, I'll call them like oral traditions that get passed down from generation to generation in salespeople that inbound leads are crap, right? And today I could go on LinkedIn every day and find a discussion somewhere where someone's saying, the only good lead is one I develop myself, a salesperson saying that. And these biases just sort of get passed down. So there's this inherent, resistance on the part of many, many sellers to this, these leads that are being handed to them. And I was somebody in my career that, I hated prospecting. Give me leads. That was great. I prospected because I had to, because I wasn't getting leads, not because I wanted to. So I think that's a good chunk of it. But then there's part of it.
Could be, yeah.
There's part of it to what you're just saying or we were just talking about, is that my experience when I work with companies on a consulting basis and we look at issues like this, is that management assumes that the follow-up is happening. If you go in and challenge a CEO or VP of marketing or VP of sales and say, hey, I've looked at the data, you're just not following up on this big swath of leads that you've invested good money to generate, they'd say, oh no, I'm sure it's happening. Almost 100% of the time, oh, I'm sure it's happening. And then you come back and say, well, let's look at it. And they're stunned, usually.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. People don't track that. I can tell you from experience, it's very rare when we find a prospect, and we typically say, "So, what's your conversion rate on meeting request to demo attended?" Right? That's a simple thing. How many people ask, and how many people, and let's assume we disqualify some. So, conversion rate, no idea. They don't track it. I remember guys say, "Oh, inbound process is doing great. We have 2 people doing it. It's awesome." And I say, all right, so it's going perfect? Yeah, it's going perfect. Okay. I say, actually, it's going so well, we're going to hire a 3rd person. I say, a 3rd person, literally in the same sentence, a 3rd person to follow up with the leads who haven't been followed up with. But we were never contacted. I'm thinking, well, you can tell your process is going great if you need to hire somebody to follow up with these people who've never been contacted, right? But it's a bizarre thing that these people think it's going well and don't pay attention to the actual facts and data.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to ask a question. So in your study, did you get a sense that in the companies that aren't following up leads, that there's actually any level of triage taking place, by the inbound team?
Yes, that was not the reason. No, it was not that they were smart and they should not have followed up, because we were very careful in our study to make sure that the meeting requests were submitted was submitted from a qualified perspective, right? So it was not that they found that it's not worth it. We made sure that the request was from what appeared to be a qualified prospect.
Right. Well,
so it was not that they were smart; it was just they were broken.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I thought the most ironic finding in your study that I found, looking at it, when you looked at response rates or response percentages based on different industry types, different application types within the software industry, is that those with the highest rate of non-response came from the companies that sell to sales teams and customer service teams. So your 3 categories with the highest rate of non-response were sales intelligence, CRM, and help desk. And I thought, isn't that ironic that you would
super
think,
ironic,
right? That would be
exactly. Yeah.
Those would be the ones that'd be the most responsive, but they're the least.
Yeah. They say the cobbler's sons of no shoes, but that's taking it a bit far. Right. Yeah, you're exactly right.
Yeah. Anyway, well, hey, I wanted to finish up by doing something that. So when you were here 6 years ago, I asked you 4 questions, so rapid fire questions, random questions. And what I was going to do is ask you those same 4 questions again and see how your answers compared to what you said last time. You
it's a test to see if I'm consistent.
I don't know. It's a test to see how you've evolved personally. So
okay, let's do it.
All right. The first question is: so when you, Nicolas, are out selling, when you're personally selling, what's your most powerful sales attribute or quality?
For sure, it's what is now called tactical empathy. Is to make sure that I put myself in the shoe of the other. And make sure that I understand where they're coming from and what their motivation is. That's what has worked for me, and that was right to teach all my salespeople.
Okay, very close. What you said last time is your natural inclination to want to help people. So I would say
that's right. So put myself in the shoe and help for what they want to do. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Second question: who is your sales role model?
Jeez. Did I give an answer to that last time?
You did, yes. I just listened to it.
Let me, my sales role model. So I had the partner when I started in my career who was in consulting, was very strong and could figure out exactly the dynamics of all the politics and that's who got me started. Yeah, is that what I said last time?
Same answer.
All right, good.
Yeah. Okay. You're two for two.
So it's not from remembering; it's from figuring it out. Yeah.
Well, I figured. Yeah. So, Number 3. What's the one book that every salesperson should read besides my new book?
This may have changed because. Besides your new book, that's a good point. I was going to say this may have changed. I can't remember what I read at the time, but now I've been very impressed by Chris Voss's Never Split the Difference. because he emphasized this concept, two concepts. One is the concept of tactical empathy, and the other piece is this concept of a black swan, to trying to find what's special about the other person that could make them move and change their mind. But it's exactly quite aligned with your book and the idea of the not selling, right? So understanding what's driving people instead of being pitching. So
your answer the first time was
that would be a tie with these two books, yours and Chris Voss. What did you answer last time? I appreciate that.
So last time you answered Trish Bertuzzi's excellent book, The Sales Development Playbook.
Yeah, that makes sense. At the time, I was very focused on sales development. Yeah.
With a close second at the time.
Came out. Yeah.
I was going to say a close second at the time with you said Mark Roberge's The Sales Acceleration Formula.
Yeah, but that was on the same line. I was very focused on sales development. As I was reading. Your book wasn't out. Chris Voss's book wasn't out. Now I'm more focused on the closing part. Yeah.
Okay. So, last question. What's on your playlist these days?
The
music. What music is on your playlist these days?
Oh, the music is hard to tell because now I have a team of 220 people, and there's a music channel called Chili Radio on Slack. And they keep, and I love house and electronic dance music.
Okay.
So at the time, I probably answered at the time Philip Glass. I'm a big fan of Philip Glass, the composer.
You did, as a matter of fact.
Hours. But now there's this new feed of this more like energizing music, techno, and I don't even. It's mostly on SoundCloud, and I don't even look at the artist. I just click on it and listen to that music. So Philip Glass has been kicked out of
house music. Okay,
not completely, but yeah.
It's Philip Glass last time. Absolutely,
it's just for the energy of it. I can see why my team members love it, and it can be a great way to get going to work.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, Nicolas, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure talking with you again. We won't wait 6 years the next time.
Yeah. All right. Yes, I'll do it quickly. Thanks, Andy.
All right. We'll talk to you soon. Oh, I should ask before we go. If people want to connect with you, what's the best way to do that?
They should come to the website Chili Piper. So it's a play on words, Piper, Piper, and request a meeting and talk to your sales team, and then they can follow me on LinkedIn. Is my main activity on LinkedIn. So if you find my name, you can follow. I've been more active now on LinkedIn because a lot of messages I find are well conveyed on LinkedIn.
Yeah, perfect. All right, Nicolas, thank you.
Yeah, thanks to you.
Okay, friends, that's it for this episode. First of all, I want to thank you for taking the time to listen. As always, I'm so grateful for your support of the show. And I want to thank my guest, Nicolas Vandenberghe, for sharing his insights with us today. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to this podcast, Sales Enablement with Andy Paul, on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. So thank you for your help with that. And thank you so much for investing your time with me today. Until next time, I'm your host, Andy Paul. Good selling, everyone.